In this video, we're going to talk about doing research. We will cover deciding what kind of sources to look for, how to find those sources, and how to evaluate them to make sure that they're reliable. Before you get started on your research, you need to decide what your topic is. This could be something that is interesting to you that you want to know more about. It could be something that you have a question about, or if you're writing a paper for school, your teacher might have assigned you a topic that you need to learn about. It's important to choose a research topic that's not too broad and not too specific. This will make it so that you're able to finish your research before your assignment is due, write a paper that's the correct length, and find enough good sources to cite in your research. An example of a topic that is too broad might be school lunch. There are too many things to cover in this topic. You'd need to write an entire book to write about it. You will find a lot of sources if you do a search in Google for school lunch, but they'll all be about different subtopics related to school lunches. You'll probably find information about the types of food served, information about cafeterias, information about the length of time that lunches last, information about cafeteria workers, and opinions and perspectives about all of these things from teachers, students, and parents. Having so many different sources about different subtopics makes it more difficult and makes it take much longer to find the best and most relevant material to use in your paper. Try to find some aspect of the topic that interests you the most. Even if your teacher gave you a boring topic, you can probably find something about it that interests you. This makes research easier and more fun. But be careful. You can also choose a topic that is too specific. An example of a topic that is too specific might be pizza lunch at my high school. You can talk to the cafeteria workers in your high school that make the pizza and get information from them. And you can get opinions about it from your classmates and teachers. But there isn't many more places where you can go to get information about the pizza in your high school. You'll probably want to include scholarly sources and newspaper articles in your research, and you will not be able to find sources on this topic unless you make it a bit more general. So what would be a topic that you could find enough information about, but that also won't be too overwhelming to write about in a multi-paged paper? You could try a topic such as healthy lunches in high schools. Sometimes it's easier to choose a topic when you frame it as a question too. This is called your research question. For example, our research question might be, how can healthy schools help high school students? Or something similar. If you're having trouble picking out a topic, think of things that you're interested in or questions you've always wondered about. If you're not sure if your topic is too broad or narrow, you can ask your teacher or your librarian to help you. So we found a topic, but it's not quite time to start searching just yet. I always tell students that it will save them a lot of time later if they ask themselves a few questions before they get started. First, you want to ask yourself, what ideas do I think I will need to find in my research? Or what questions do I have about my topic that I'd really like to answer in my paper? For our example topic, how can healthy lunches help high school students? I'd like to find information about nutrition and health for high school students and why it's important. I might look to see if eating healthy has any correlation to grades or paying better attention in classes after lunch, and some methods that high schools have used to promote healthy eating in the cafeteria. I might find additional information that I haven't thought of, but it is a good idea to consider what you'd like to find, because that will help you decide where to look. Take a moment and pause this video. Write down some of the subtopics and questions that you have for your topic. For example, for my question about nutrition needs in high schoolers, I might want to look into health and medical scholarly journals to find articles about this. Scholarly journals can be a great source when you want to find peer-reviewed, evidence-based research about a topic. I might also want to look at organizations' web pages that I know deal with nutrition and health, such as the CDC or the USDA. For my question about methods that schools have used to promote healthy eating, I might look for scholarly articles in education journals. Or I could look for examples of what schools have done in newspapers. Newspapers are a great source when you want to find people's opinions about a topic, or when you want to find sources that are specific to a certain location, or from your own local city, such as Omaha. So, now I know what my topic is and where I'd like to look to find answers to my questions. Now I'm ready to consider how I will find all these sources. We'll find relevant sources by using keywords. Whether you know it or not, you're probably already familiar with keywords. Have you ever done a search in Google? That was a keyword search. Keywords are the words that we use to search for relevant sources. Google is very good at determining what your keywords are. So good that you can even type in an entire sentence and Google will get rid of the words that are not helping you find results. Other websites and databases where you will probably want to search for resources are not as good at Google at this though. This is one of the reasons why you'll want to write down keywords you can use for your search. The other reason you should think about keywords is because sometimes more than one keyword will get us great results on the same topic. It is a good idea to think of synonyms, words that are slightly broader, narrower, but still related before you do a search. This will help you find the most relevant results and will save you time later. For example, in my question, how can healthy lunches help high school students? The words or concepts that will allow the website or database to find relevant sources are healthy lunches and high school students. There are many different ways to refer to both of these things. Let's use high school students as an example. Take out a piece of paper and spend 30 seconds thinking of all of the synonyms, broader words or narrower words that you could use to mean high school students. How many words did you get? I wrote down words that are synonyms such as high schooler and secondary school. You could have also written broader words like teenager or adolescent. Or you could have written narrower terms like 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. All of these words can help us to find sources related to high school students. While you can use Google as a searching tool, there are many other places where you can also search that help you find more relevant and higher quality sources. Now we're going to cover some recommended places to start searching for your sources. Google Scholar is one spot that can help you search that has the same search bar as Google, so it's easy to use. The difference is that Google Scholar searches scholarly literature and sources. This type of material is generally backed up by research, meaning that it can help you to prove the points that you're making in your paper with evidence and data. So, let's take a look at some of the spaces that have sources for you once you're ready to search for materials. You can access Google Scholar by going to scholar.google.com. As we said before, this page looks a lot like Google, but since this is Google Scholar, it's going to only be searching through scholarly sources and literature. This is where your list of keywords comes in handy. Look at the list of keywords that you generated and choose some for your search. For this search, I'm going to put promote teenage nutrition into the search bar and hit search. As you can see, we got quite a few results. Looking through these, you'll see some of the results have links off to the right side of the page. Typically, if you see these links on the right side of the screen, you'll be able to access these sources for free. Let's take a look at this one. Here's the abstract of the article, which is a brief summary. And if we scroll down, we'll see the rest of the article here. If you don't see a link on the right, like for this one, you can try to access this article by clicking on the main title link. Some of these articles are available, but some of them are behind a paywall, meaning it's going to ask you to pay before you can see the article. These articles can be very expensive, so it's best to try and find those that are free for you to use first. You can also ask your school librarian if they have interlibrary loan or if they have another option for how you might be able to access these articles without spending a bunch of your money. Another spot where you can find great sources for free is through Omaha Public Library's Resource Center. To access these resources, go to omahalibrary.org. You'll need to be signed into your library account to get access to these platforms. If you live in Douglas County, you can get an Omaha Library card for free. You just need to take a trip to your closest library with your guardians. Once you're logged in, click on the Resource Center. Under Audience, you can choose resources for kids or teens. Today, let's look at the databases that are recommended for teens. So here's the list of databases recommended for middle school and high school students. The title of the database is the link to the database's page, and below it, you'll see this description of what the database holds. Be sure to check out everything that this page has to offer. There are many different types of databases that hold many different types of sources that can help you depending on what your topic is. Today I'd like to show you one database where you can find scholarly sources and magazines, and another one where you can find newspaper articles. For scholarly sources and magazines, let's scroll down and click on Explora. It's going to ask you to log in with your library card number and your 4-digit PIN. On this page, the search box is up here on the top. This is another point when you might want to take a look at your keywords and consider what type of information you want to find. I'm going to enter the keywords school lunch nutrition and hit search. As you can see, we got quite a few results. We can narrow down the number of results we have and make the results that we're looking at more specific by using the Refine Results bar on the left side of the screen. If you take a look over here, you can see that you can limit your results to be scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. You can limit the publication date. You can also limit by source type. Take a look here and see how many different types of sources we got in our results list. We have encyclopedia entries, magazines, academic journals. This database is even showing us some newspapers and biographies for our search. As you look at your results list, this will tell you what type of source you have, and this will tell you the title. Here's a government document. This one's a periodical. This number 3 is an academic journal. Let's click on this one and get a closer look. What we see on the screen here is the PDF of the article. If you'd like to download this to read, you can click on the Download PDF button. Also on this page, you can save this article to Google Drive if you have a Google Drive, or you can use the permalink button to get a link back to this article. This link will stay good for a very long time, and I would recommend you use this if you would like to have a link back to this page in this database for future use. So that's a quick run-through of Explora. If you need help with this database, please feel free to ask your librarian or your teacher for more help. Back on the Teen Resource Center page, now I'd like to show you a database for finding newspaper articles. We're going to scroll down to the ends, and we're going to click on Newsbank Newspaper Articles. Here's the search bar. I'm going to type in my keywords right here. And hit search. So as you can see, this database looks kind of similar to the last one. I want you to notice that on the left side of the screen, you have limiters again. In this database, it's usually a good idea to change the sort by limiter. It defaults to sorting by the newest articles, but students have found that using Best Match can help you to find more relevant articles for your topic. Other things you can limit by are date published, the source type, and the source location. This can be helpful if you're looking for newspapers that were published in a specific state across the U.S. For these results, you can see a preview of the article by clicking on the Preview button, or you can view the full article by clicking on the title. Here you have some of the same tools that you saw on the last database. You can email this article to yourself, or you can copy a permalink to the article. So that was a quick run-through of Newsbank, a really great database for finding newspaper articles from Omaha Public Library's Resource Center. If you need help finding sources or using any of these databases or other online materials, please ask your librarian or your teacher for more help. As you can see, there's a ton of information out there. With so much to choose from, you need to make sure that you're choosing the best sources. Once you find a relevant source on your topic, it's necessary to evaluate it and make sure that the source has valid and truthful information on your topic. A great way to evaluate sources is to use the 5 W's. If you've already found a source that you'd like to use, make sure you have it handy as we go through the 5 W's. Pause each slide and ask yourself the questions listed there to determine if you found a good source to support your research ideas. The first W is who. Ask yourself questions like, who wrote the piece? Are they an expert? What makes them an expert? Who published this item? Is the publisher reliable? And who is the information intended for in this piece? You should always be able to tell who the author of a source is, whether it's a person or an organization. If your source doesn't have an author, that makes it less trustworthy, and you shouldn't use that source in your research. If you aren't sure who the author of a source is, you can Google their name to find out their credentials. Learn more about them and determine if they have the experience with and education about the topic that you're researching. The second W is what. Look at the source you've chosen and ask, what is the author's claim? How do they argue this claim? With facts or with their opinions? What information does the author use to support their claims? What claims will you explore further with more additional research? What terms or ideas do you need to know more about? What information are you not seeing in this source? This is a good time to remember all of the questions that you said you wanted to answer before we started searching. The third W is when. Ask yourself, when was this information published or last updated? Is the information in the source current enough to use in your argument? What is current enough for your research depends a lot on your topic. For example, if you're doing research on a topic related to technology, you'll probably want the newest sources you can find, since we're inventing and learning about new things in technology every day. For other topics that do not change as fast, you can probably use older sources, and for other topics, you might even decide that you'd like to learn about its history. In this case, you might look for even older sources. The fourth W is where. Where does the author get their information? Is it their own research or someone else's research or opinions? And where will you go to get more information about this topic? If you find a source that shares other people's opinions or research instead of the author's own, it is best to try and find the original source that those opinions or that research came from. Ask your teacher or librarian if you need help with this. The fifth W is why. Ask, why did the author write this piece? And why is this information useful to you? You should always consider if a source was created to inform or persuade when you find one. Informative pieces will show the reader information and let them make up their own mind. Persuasive pieces might share some information, but then they'll tell you what you should think or how you should feel about it. In sources like this, it is important to realize what are the facts and information and what is the author's opinion. Once you figure out what part is the author's opinion, then you can decide for yourself if you agree with them or not. The 5 W's are all important things to think about when you find a source, no matter where you find it. If your sources don't hold up, then neither will the argument that you make in your paper. How did your source do with the 5 W's? Do you still think it's a good source to use in your paper? Would you recommend someone read it who wanted to learn more about your topic? Do you think the information it shares is truthful and correct? This has been a short introduction to selecting a topic, using keywords, and finding and evaluating sources. If you have any questions, ask your teacher or your librarian. Thanks for watching.